So hi there, I'm Mahlia. Audio description. I'm a brown-skinned female in my 30s with black hair, and I'm wearing a predominantly black dress with yellow flowers on. So welcome to this presentation that I'm doing for Disability Arts Online. In this presentation, I'll be discussing thriving as an artist in the digital age. What I'll do is I'll start by discussing my practice prior to COVID and reflecting on this, and then I'll move on to discussing how life has been since COVID and how I've adapted to the digital age and hybrid age that we now belong to. So slide number 2, audio description, title, Kathmandu Calling. There are 6 images of paintings from this collection of work. It's vibrant abstract art and it's based on scenery from Nepal that has then been abstracted. So this was my first exhibition that I did back in 2015. And I used images from Nepal that were taken and I abstracted those. Even at the outset, when I displayed this collection of work, it wasn't just the paintings by themselves, it was the photos that were next to them. I was very much there talking to people and explaining to them about Nepal and my time there. I spent volunteering and living out there. And I think the photos really resonated with people. They could really understand and see the process of my work. So from then, even though it was my first exhibition, I knew that there was something about explaining the process, the different steps that I'd taken, and just giving the context as well as to what the work is and what it means, and I guess the greater context behind it. So later on in 2015, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. So this was the same year that I actually became an artist. For audio description, the left image is a side view of a person in the night sky. The right image is a blue and pink poster of the exhibition that I did, which is entitled On a Spectrum, an Exploration of Asperger's Syndrome. And I'll talk more about this. So as I said, I was diagnosed the same year that I became an artist, and I used my old career, which was in market research, to create a questionnaire that I then got those on the autism spectrum to complete. So I was using my old skills but bringing it into my new career as an artist. It was my way of reaching out and making sense of my diagnosis. A lot of this was done online, but also in person. So I would meet with people and I would explain the questionnaire, explain that it's about using mark making to describe the different traits that someone on the autistic spectrum could experience. That could be sensory overload, it could be difficulties with change. I also got them to write a little bit about what that meant to them, how they were affected, as well as to choose the colours that they associated with that particular characteristic. And interestingly, the lime green was the most popular colour for sensory overload. That's one that comes to mind. And there were particular colours that people did pick. Slide 4, audio description, images of the exhibition, Life on a Spectrum, an Exploration of Asperger's Syndrome, that took place at the Peacock Gallery in Reading. The images contain paintings and people visiting the exhibition, as well as written content that they're looking through. So the aim of the survey was to get respondents to complete the questionnaire by using mark making as a way to illustrate their key Asperger traits. So at the exhibition, as well as the paintings that were created through a collaborative approach, I suppose, I used the questionnaires that people had completed and I picked out the key themes for each trait and then did a painting about each trait. So for example, there would be one about having a unique perspective on life. So I collected all the marks that people had made relating to that trait and created a painting on it. Alongside that painting, I also had a write-up of what people had written regarding that trait, and I turned it into a piece of creative writing. And they were formed into like medical files, so people could pick them up and look through them. They could see the questionnaire, and again really understand the process of how the exhibition came to be, people that were involved, examples of questionnaires that had been completed. There were also videos as well, so this was the first time I did this. I interviewed a psychiatrist about autism so that it could be a really educative exhibition where, as well as the art, you'd have the sort of more theoretical side to actually what is autism. I feel like that really helped. And then I did a video on some of the respondents as well, and they talked through why they made particular marks. They talked about their experiences of autism as well, and what they were thinking as well for their process, because it wasn't just my process of creating this art project. They also played a key part in that. So just using video a bit more to tell the story behind the process and what's entailed. So for me, again, like I'd started to use different art mediums to, I suppose, inform my advocacy work around autism, raising awareness and understanding around this. Slide 5, audio description, multiple images of clothes hanging out to dry. So then came my next art project, which was Around the World in 80 Washing Lines. And this was based around humanity and connectedness. It was an image, actually, painting from the KATHMANDU Calling exhibition, which had clothes hanging out to dry. Everyone really loved this painting. It seemed to resonate with people a lot, this sort of simple chore, very ordinary, very mundane, that everybody, irrespective of where they're from in the world, partakes in and does. So for me, that really captured my imagination and also visitors' imagination. So I went on this mission to collect, to reach out to people and to collect these images of washing lines from 80 different countries, 80 different people. I was really interested when I received these photos from, well, initially friends, but then strangers around the world. I wanted to find out a bit more about them and, you know, who are these people? What were they doing there? What do they do? I guess it was a social art project. I started asking them about their hopes and dreams and biggest life regrets. And some of the responses I received, I mean, they were so open and so genuinely from the heart. They were quite emotional to read as well. And from this came about this exhibition, which was a laundry installation. And I continued with, I suppose, my advocacy work around raising awareness around autism. So instead of having these photographs printed out and beautifully displayed in frames, I actually had them printed out onto clothes and different textured clothes as well. And it was a very immersive exhibition, so people could touch the clothes, they could smell them, so they each have different scents. And there was also the sound of laundry taking place in the background. So it was really about highlighting sensory sensitivities with those on the autism spectrum. So there was that educational component, again, advocacy, while also sending this very important social messaging around humanity and connectedness, and the fact that, you know, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, who you are, what you do, everyone's got laundry to do, and that we've got a whole lot more in common with each other than we think and at face value. And this project was especially important at the time because it started in 2016, which is when we voted in Brexit. And I felt like we were really living in this country of a sort of a them and us, like real disparities. And for me, it was my way of connecting and, yeah, reminding myself of all the good in the world. So that was when it started, and it came into fruition towards the end of 2017. So it was quite a long process getting these people and these interviews together. Slide 6, audio description. Images from my exhibition, 80 Washing Lines, at the Riverside Museum, Reading. The images depict clothes and stories hanging up on washing lines and visitors looking at these. The images were taken from a launch night, so there are a lot of people in some of the images. And the exhibition actually took place in Reading and Slough, and then London as well. So it was a touring exhibition. I did a number of workshops and tours with neurodiverse audiences, and each of the venues was so different. They each lent themselves very well to the exhibition, the installation. So it was like going to 3 completely separate exhibitions. And that taught me a lot about, I guess, curating and really using the space well. And that was an absolutely incredible experience. But again, you know, my work was very much about people being in the space, working with people, doing groups, having immersive exhibitions. Like, you couldn't have an exhibition today where people are touching everything and smelling things. Like, that just doesn't even lend itself to the world that we live in today. So as you can see, it was just completely very hands-on type of art that I was doing. Slide 7, audio description, title, interactive. 3 images showing a man using a magnetic board at my exhibition, Life on a Spectrum, at Southfield Park in Bracknell. So Life on a Spectrum was the last exhibition that I did in the physical world. I then pushed interaction and participatory art to another level. I was very much I guess I wanted people to have a conversation with me at the exhibition and kind of leave their mark. So the previous exhibitions, a lot of the process and the interaction happened before the exhibition opened. But here it was very much about creating this narrative and changing the exhibition as it's on while it's the duration of the show. So this magnetic board had pre-cut magnetic shapes, and people could create a composition of their artwork reflecting on their mood. It was very much based around concepts of mindfulness and getting people just to stop and think and really feel like, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. How can I then depict this using these different colored shapes, different sizes, and there were some which had different texture as well. So really taking those sort of learnings from previous exhibitions and still wanting to educate and teach people about the autism spectrum. So this was the interactive element of the exhibition. Slide 8, collaborative. 4 images showing a label maker, a postbox, a table, and a mirror. So another one of the activities at this exhibition involved 4 to 5 different questions that I had on this table. It was asking people about traits such as anxiety that they may have experienced. So with the example of anxiety, I would write, I had on the table how I would experience anxiety, how it would show up for me, and an example of where this could be, so public transport, for example. I then asked an open-ended question where I would get others to give examples of their anxiety and how they experience it. I got people to write their answers on slips of paper, and then they put them in a post box. Bracknell being not too far away from where I'm based in Reading, I actually used to go into the exhibition space a couple of times a week, and I'd check the mailbox, and I'd see all these responses that people put in these little envelopes, and I'd open them up and I'd type up some of the responses on my label maker, and then I'd stick them on the sort of exhibition mirror that was there, which has I'm masking symptoms at the top. And it was very much about creating a narrative around neurodiversity. I don't feel that, although my experiences are obviously very valid, mine is just one voice. So I was very keen to get other people involved and for them to share their experiences. And it just meant that the exhibition grew over time as well. So people could come back to the space and they'd see more responses on the mirror. And I quite like this, this notion of this exhibition changing over time and growing. That was really appealing to me. Again, there were videos that were made in this exhibition. I actually did 4 videos which were based around performance art. So this was something I hadn't done before. I sat with trigger situations. So a trigger situation for me would be being around a ticking clock. That's something I cannot stand and will have to move the clock. Flashing lights was another one, overlapping sounds, multitasking. So I had these half-hour videos of me filmed in those sort of trigger situations. They were shown as well. So it was another way to really explain what it's like for me on the autism spectrum and in video format. So that was really interesting to try. So there was performance art, there was the question task that I've just spoken about, the magnetic board. There was also lots of phrases, again, relating to symptoms around, symptoms that can be experienced as part of being autistic, that were exhibited all around the space. So you could walk around, you could be in the lift and you might see like a little small phrase in the corner that you're just not expecting. So that was really cool. So I felt like this exhibition really took interaction and participation to another level. So moving on to the next slide, slide 9. COVID-19 hits. 3 images from the Life on a Spectrum exhibition that I've just spoken about. The middle image has a side view of me, while the other 2 show visual art and writing from the exhibition. So yeah, COVID hit. The exhibition at South Hill Park was one of 3. So I was supposed to have another 2 exhibitions that were due to be shown at the end of March and then April 2020. Obviously they were cancelled. They were postponed for another year, and actually they did end up being online in the end. At the time we tried to make an online version of them, but they were just effectively web pages where people could click on, look at an image and read some work. There was no interaction whatsoever. I think I put one of the questions up there to try to get people to participate, but people just weren't participating. I didn't have a single response to any of the questions that I posted, and that concerned me because I thought, okay, I'm not having exhibitions in the physical world. My work is very much interactive and participatory. How am I going to do this online? Can I do this online? Will it even work? Because obviously people's attention spans are not very long at all. We live in such a saturated online world already. And as we went into the first lockdown, people were spending so much time online, Zoom calls. We quickly became zoomed out. People wanted a break from that. That was all we knew, but it had to be very engaging. So that was, yeah, something that concerned me. And yeah, it was a challenge. But that summer, there was a call out from the Free Space Project and Camden Healthcare Centre. Slide 10, audio description, Free Space Project, 5 images of a digital online version of Life on the Spectrum. So they had a commission for existing work to be translated online into a digital art exhibition. The space online replicated their exhibition space. So I'd never even been to Kentish Town Healthcare Centre before, so I had no idea what this even looked like in the real world. And this opportunity was actually incredible because I got to work directly with a digital artist who was able to translate all of my work from the physical world to an online exhibition. And I was just blown away because I was like, wow, there are just so many opportunities to show my work online, but in a really cool and engaging way. It was really tricky at first because I'd known this exhibition in the physical world. So I was trying to directly translate my experiences of the physical exhibition to the online world. So I was trying to do it sort of as a direct translation, which doesn't really work because the online space is very different in its nature. I also had in my head as well, like setup day, you know, all this preparation of paintings and work and getting it all ready and having it transported to an exhibition space. That didn't matter with the online world. We had about, I I think it was up to a month we had to actually prepare all of this, and it could be done so flexibly and so easily through Zoom meetings and just documents explaining exactly what I wanted and sending over the files and any descriptions that I needed. It was a lot simpler, a lot less stressful, and it was just really nice to collaborate with somebody else with skills that I don't have, and to learn from them as well. And I felt like it was such an opportunity. So it really spurred me on to then apply for Develop Your Creative Practice funding, to then work with the digital artist to create prototypes of what my work could look like if it was translated into a digital space in the future. For this space, it was great, but it was very much made for this project. But then I thought, well, what could my work look like with my messaging in the online space? Slide 11, audio description, collaborating with the digital artist to create an accessible and engaging online space. 3 images showing a futuristic looking prototype of an online exhibition of my work. So I'm still working on this project actually. There's been 1 prototype created. I thought it would be several prototypes, but actually we went with 1 and then we just kept building on that 1 because there were so many different ideas that came about and different changes that were sort of needed, or I think that was just how the creative process went. But there was a lot of work done around researching accessibility in the online world. So what is needed for someone who is neurodiverse, someone who's dyslexic, someone who's autistic, what's best for these audiences in terms of accessibility. Also age came into it, people's capability in terms of using the different keys, being able to navigate around the space. So those were all things that we both started to research and look at. And there wasn't any sort of profound or compounding evidence to strongly suggest any one approach over another. What came about through the research was that actually people like to have the choice. So when designing this online space, we made sure that you could select your font size, your font, the background color, your music, even how you would go around the exhibition space. So for those that are quite comfortable using the sort of gaming keys as such, or using a mouse to navigate around the space, there was that option. But then there was also an option which gave a predefined route where someone could, I guess, literally click start, and the exhibition would be effectively a tour going from one painting to another. You'd have a chance to stop off at each painting, so you would be able to find out more about the actual painting. So you'd be able to read a bit about the context. There might be external links to further information. There'll be videos. There was also a sketchbook as well, so you could then see the process. And it was really exciting, like, thinking of all these different things, because it was very much about marrying up both what I know about the physical world and exhibiting there, but also marrying it up with what works well already online and not reinventing the wheel. So for example, taking aspects from social media, we all know how that works. So actually having scroll down menus and being able to leave comments, and yeah, really utilizing what already works online with what could then be implemented into an online art exhibition. So that's been really cool actually, and I'm still working on this. I'm developing another prototype, so my hope is that I can use these prototypes and show them to potential gallerists or art centres and be like, this is what I want to do with my next collection of work, this is what I see it looking like. I can imagine future work being both online but also in the physical world, using more technology as well in the future, so people having VR sets as they walk around the space, and then being able to access more information, people having the choice to then go home and access the online exhibition as well as just having seen the physical one. People who can't go to galleries and have barriers to getting to them, or that could be anything from disability to social anxiety to location, anything really. So just giving people the choice to be able to do things online, because it is a real it's a real game changer. It enables a lot of people to do a lot of things, and I think we need to be thinking more around that and making it as accessible as possible. So that's my hope with future art that I create. I'm now going to play you the walkthrough video of the prototype exhibition. This walks you through the space as you click into it, and it shows you the different features available. And those different features are what I've spoken about already. So being able to choose the size of the font, for instance. So when I first worked with the Free Space project and did the work with them, the digital exhibition felt like a really new space. It felt almost quite progressive in a way, like no one else was really doing that in the art world, I'd say. Some galleries had tried to make online work and engage with people and have talks, but they didn't feel like there was a lot going on at that point. So we're a year later down the line now, and I feel like it has become normalized in a way. We're very much used to now going back out to galleries, or we're starting to at least, but we're also used to consuming content online, whether that's art or a talk or otherwise. And I imagine going forward, it's going to be a mix of this. So it will be really interesting to see what will happen. I think that's ultimately going to be driven by the public and what they like, how accessible they find the online world, and or if there is simply just a preference for seeing art in the physical world. So I think we're in a really exciting time, like seeing how it will pan out. But I think there's just real opportunity, and I just want to be able to make the best of that, and kind of go with the flow of that, whatever that looks like. And as long as I'm pursuing my art practice, then I'm happy to be open to the different types of ways in which my art can be shown. So I guess, yeah, let's see how we all get on. And but that's been my journey over the last year and a half of using the digital world and having to adapt to that. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you found it interesting.